Welcome to another edition of Nutmeg Chatter presents The Claw's Corner. Today's guest is writer, director, filmmaker, puppeteer, and owner of Elmwood Productions, John Bristol. His latest movie, it's a puppet horror movie entitled Head, can be found on Amazon Prime. Please welcome to the show the multi-talented John Bristol.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
All right, so John, first question.
Yeah.
Puppet versus Muppet.
Yeah.
What is the difference? These are the hard-hitting questions that my listeners expect from me.
It's Xerox versus photocopier. It's paper. It's a brand name. That's the main difference. There is definitely a performance style for the Muppets that has been adapted and adopted by many other puppeteers. But yeah, that's just it. It's just a brand name.
So Jim Henson has Muppets.
Yes.
And everybody else has puppets.
Everyone says puppets. Yeah.
Well, before we get into anything, I want to go way back to the beginning.
Right on.
The year was 2001, and you began Elmwood Productions. What was your goal?
Entertain myself and my friends. Like we wanted to just do two of the things we loved was puppets and film, and we wanted to bring the two together, make movies, and have a good time doing them. And if people liked them, we'd keep going. If people didn't like them, we probably would have kept going. But we had a good time doing it, and people really seem to enjoy what we've done, and we've been able to keep doing it for 19 years now. So it's pretty exciting.
So I guess you're doing something right.
Something right enough, yeah.
Well, I love your philosophy. If we're entertained, then someone must be as well. Or someone must be too.
Somebody else must be too, something like that.
I love that.
Because you look at like humor, you look at anything. If you're doing it and you're enjoying it, there's got to be somebody else out there. You're not alone.
Definitely. And you know what? We're going to get into the different things that you've done, but I've seen probably 5 or 6 different YouTube videos and different shows, and I'm very much entertained.
Thank you. That's awesome. I'm glad to hear that.
When you were in your early 20s, you and your friends created comic strips that turned into comic books. Did you ever consider turning your comics into movies?
That's really what happened. We were making this comic strip. Me and some friends were writing it, and I was drawing it. And we were joking around about turning it into a movie. It was like 94, 95. And comic movies were just becoming a thing that was normal. Like Batman was out in 89, but there wasn't like a comic movie every 2 months.
Yeah.
And in 94, you had like 3 in one summer, I think, and it was like, oh my god, comic movies. And then 95 you had even more, and we had this comic strip we were doing, and I'm like, we should make this into a movie just for us, get a video camera, and, it definitely wouldn't have been a big budget thing. And then we were all like joking around how none of us are good looking enough to be in a movie, this and that. And I was being a huge Muppet fan and a huge fan of puppetry. I was already kind of building puppets here and there just for fun. I was like, we should just make a whole movie with puppets. How hard can that be? And
can't be hard at all.
Exactly.
Right?
That movie never got made. The comic got abandoned because the puppetry thing. Once I started really trying to build puppets, I just fell so much in love with it. And so really it started with the comics. Yeah. And we've never made that movie. We probably never will. But we've made a bunch of other cool stuff. So that's okay.
So the reason you didn't have actors because you thought you were too ugly,
right?
So you wanted to have puppets. Did you have somebody create the puppets for you?
No, that was all me. Yeah, that was all me. Almost every puppet you see in one of our films, I built or was involved in building. There's maybe 2 overall that I didn't touch.
So what did you do? Did you say, you know what, let's grab some felt, let's grab some glue, and let's create a puppet?
Yeah, pretty much. It was this is back when you had the library as opposed to the internet to get all your information. And went to the library, got a couple books on puppet making. They were pretty rudimentary. I had some toy puppets, so I turned them inside out or took them apart and reverse engineered it and kind of went from there. And then right when I was really getting deep, there was this one author, these 2 authors put a book out about puppet making that was for foam-style puppets, Muppet-style puppets. There was no such thing before that. And I managed to get a hold of it. It wasn't easy because it wasn't like a big publisher. They were self-publishing it. And again, pre-internet. I think the internet was just coming out because I remember I found their website and I could order it from the website and ordered that book, and that just, okay, great. That got me going.
So it's not like a 2-click on Amazon Prime.
No, it was not.
Then.
Yeah, I think I had to mail them a check even. I got the information about it and the address from there. Had to mail a check. If I remember, I could be wrong, but yeah, but it came. And you always have a little bit of what if they're scamming, But it came and it was a great book. I still reference it once in a while. So,
how long did it take you to create the first puppet?
Few days really. To once you figured it out, a few days to build that actual puppet. I still have it. Yeah, I still have like the first 3 or 4 I made. Yeah.
So were your friends, were they the puppeteers?
Yeah, that's what happened. It was me and my buddies all, hey, who wants to do this with me? And some people did, some people didn't, and anybody who wanted to come along and help was happy to come help and come up with ideas and all that. And everyone does a little bit of everything even now. Some people are, if you're a puppeteer, you're also probably going to be a guy who holds a boom mic or, whoever's available to do whatever. But all the puppeteers, we're better now than we were then, obviously, as puppeteers. But
yeah, well, the only way to get better is actually doing it over and over and over again.
Practicing, and yeah. Yep.
So did you buy a film camera, always wanted to be a filmmaker, and then just started filming the puppets? Was your original goal to be a filmmaker?
No, it was to be a puppeteer at that
Puppeteer,
point.
okay.
I really wanted to get into puppetry, and the film thing was how I got into it. Well, no one goes to see live puppet shows. It's not not what it was 100 years ago. So we'll make movies with the puppets because I love movies too, and I love film and all that. So I put the two together, and borrowed cameras from people forever, because cameras were more expensive than puppets. So I'll wait on that, and then around 2003, 3 and 4, this guy named Russ came into the group, and he always wanted to be a filmmaker too. And he's like, I'll buy cameras, I'll make this happen. So that was his end. While I funded all the puppet stuff, he funded the tech end. And we started really rolling there, and that's where like Josh and Todd came from, and Steve the Vampire came out of that era of what we were doing. And that's when we started feeling like we were pros. Around 2006, we really like hit our stride.
So from 2001 to 2006, you were just getting your feet
It was
wet.
really developing and
Yeah.
learning and making little skits and things like that, but nothing I'd brag about right now. I bragged to my friend, oh man, it was so cool when we did that. It was so much fun, but I wouldn't do a screening of it.
You had to be there. It was great.
I'll show you a DVD at my house someday, but I'm not putting it on the internet.
Now, was
Yeah.
Elmwood Productions the original name?
No, we originally called something else, Fantasy Theater Productions. And I was living in Florida for a little while, and I discovered there was a guy who had a company called Fantasy Puppet Theater, and it was just too close. So I was like, we need to change this. So one of my friends who's part of the group, Pete, he recommended, like we all grew up in Elmwood, Connecticut, a bunch of us. So he was like, and the fictional story for that original comic we were doing, the characters lived in this fake town of Elmwood. And he's like, why don't we just call it Elmwood Productions? And I was like, yeah, for now we'll do that. That's great. That's a great temporary name. It's stuck. It's good. It's stuck. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely memorable.
Yeah.
And it means something.
Yes.
Now, if someone is interested in becoming a puppeteer, how can they reach you?
Through our website, through my email, john@elmwoodproductions.com, or just find us on Facebook and reach out to us. Those are the easiest ways. The internet, There's no H in John, by the way, but
Okay,
yeah.
that's Jon Bristol.
Yep, just jon@elmwoodproductions.com, though, is the email address. And feel free to reach out, anybody who's listening. I mean, we're always looking for new people that want to help and learn, and,
So I'm guessing you don't use the same puppeteers for every movie.
It really depends on the project. Some people come in, they do a project, they're happy, they don't want to do it again because people don't realize how much work puppetry actually is. A lot of local theater people have come in and want to be a part of it, and then they realize how hard it is, and they do one project with us, and we never see them again. We're happy to have them there. Don't get me wrong, do good work, And then other people come in and they're just like, oh, I don't want to be a puppeteer. I want to help do the audio mixing, and then they have an aptitude for puppetry and they love it. So, we're happy to have people come in and try anything, but
What
yeah.
does it take to be a puppeteer? For the movie?
Patience.
Patience?
Yeah, it's the hurry up and wait, like anything with filmmaking. You get there, your call may be at 9 a.m. You might actually get a puppet on to film until noon, though, just the way things go. And it's a lot of holding your hand over your head in very uncomfortable positions. Frank Oz is quoted as saying, if you're comfortable, you're doing it wrong. And it's absolutely true, because if you're comfortable, that means the puppet's probably not looking in the right direction, or, you got to have some stamina to hold your arm up over your head.
Yeah, well, explain to me how you're filming, because they have to see what they're doing. So they have a monitor where they're looking at themselves.
Yep.
And you're filming from, I would guess, like the waist up. Just
Of the
with
character, yeah.
Yeah, of the character.
So your head is tilted to one side, the puppet's up over your head. There's a screen on the ground or somewhere in front of you where you can see what the camera is seeing. It's on a very slight delay, which can be confusing sometimes, and everything's the opposite of where you're moving your head, because you're watching on the screen. So if you're moving your head this way, it's moving that way on the screen. If you're moving left, it's looking like it's right on the screen. So it can be confusing at times, for sure.
It might
But
take a little while.
you take some
Get used
practice,
to
yeah, and some getting. I mean, every time we shoot, if we don't shoot for like 2 or 3 weeks or even months sometimes, and I'll get back underneath the puppet, because I'm always practicing, but I don't always have a monitor up. As soon as I get in there, I'm like, oh, this again. It takes me a minute to warm up.
So you're also the writer, director, and puppeteer.
I've done it all. Yeah,
Produce it,
Yeah.
obviously.
Yeah, like Head, I did write, direct, and produce. The last 2 projects we did that were bigger ones. I wrote a lot of them, but didn't direct most of it. We had another guy named Ricky who's been with us for a while. He's an amazing director. And I know my strengths, I know his strengths. So if I'm going to be a lead puppeteer, he should be directing, because he can handle it better than I can. It's hard to do both.
When you're writing, do you collaborate?
Sometimes. Certain projects, like Head was a great example. I wrote a first draft, had my buddy Joe look at it, who was an author, and he did some cleaning up on it and touching up on it. And then another buddy of ours, Brian, who I hadn't met yet, he was just this guy who emailed me. He was a Connecticut guy who had some friends in common with me, emailed me. He's like, I'm interested in writing. Like, we don't really need writers, but here's a script we're never going to do.
Yeah.
Feel free to do a rewrite on it so I can see what kind of stuff you do. And we ended up, when the movie was all said and done, I think we used 2 lines he actually wrote. And I'm like, well, I'm going to give him credit because that draft was the one we ended up essentially using to shoot. I went back and like changed things around, but we used a couple of his lines. So it was like, all right, he's going to get a writer credit because that's the fair thing to do because his lines were really good. But it depends on what we're doing. Like the last show we shot, the last 2 things we shot were big things were a series called Animal Behavior and a short film called The Jungle Man. I wrote all those on my own. But the series before that, Risley, there was 2 writers on it, myself and a Torrington native, Rick Corbo. So he,
Right, a little shout out there.
yeah, he wrote an episode.
Torrington.
Yeah.
I'm speaking with writer, director, filmmaker, puppeteer, and owner of Elmwood Productions, John Bristol. All right, so you mentioned it briefly.
Yeah.
I want you to talk more about Josh and Todd.
Oh, yes. That was our first feature film that we actually did. It was when I'm going back, when I was talking about Russ and the stuff that we wouldn't show people now, the first project we were going to do was this short film called Josh and Todd, The Story of a Man and His Puppet. We started shooting it. We had a cast. We watched the footage, and we stopped. We're like, we need to get better at this, and we started making more like little skits and shorts to build up to it. And then a few years later, we finally did make Josh and Todd, and it became a feature film. I co-directed that with somebody else, actually, who, when we went to make it a feature, he wanted to take the script I'd written and expand it, obviously, and make it longer. I was like, yeah, sure, go ahead, fine. I got to build these puppets anyways, because we had to rebuild all the puppets, because they were old and not good compared to what I could do now, so it was, at that point at least. So I was like, yeah, let's rebuild those. And then we made this great comedy, bromance comedy type thing. And it predated some other stuff that other puppeteers have come and done since, like Happy Time Murders, with that all the F-bombs and all that. So we kind of felt like, man, we did this already when that movie came out. But we made it. It was fun. Josh and Todd was a lot of fun to do. It's one of our only projects that's humans and puppets together. Mostly we just do all puppet stuff. But
You then created It's Late Enough with Plink.
That was the first big project, I would say. Yeah.
What was the premise of that? I thought
that was a late night talk show. This was the thing that we will never show anyone, because we did the Josh and Todd stopped, and then we made this late night talk show parody with a puppet hosting named Plink. And it was just a parody of what goes on screen and behind the camera, behind the scenes. It was like the Muppet Show, but like everyone, instead of being excited to put on a show, they're like, "This is my freaking job." It was a little
like
more
Larry
cynical.
Sanders.
It was
puppets.
very. I would say it was very much like Larry Sanders.
I love
but with
that.
puppets, and we had a lot of fun doing it. We learned so much making that, and I think there might be some clips online, but we've never really put a whole episode out there because it's not something we really want out there anymore. I mean, maybe the pilot we'll put on YouTube for our 20th anniversary or something. But
Yeah, I think it's fun to look back at now.
Right.
Say, oh my God, look what we were doing back then.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, immediately following that was Steve the Vampire, and it was like a complete U-turn in quality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you ever been to Georgia to see the Muppet Museum?
The Center for Puppetry Arts, I have never been there.
I was there last year. I loved. They have a whole section just for Jim Henson.
Just the Henson Wing. Yeah, they have one in New York now, too. At
Really?
the Museum of the Moving Image, they have a whole Henson Wing there, too, which is fantastic. I've been there a few times. But
What was great about that is they had a camera, a monitor, and a puppet, so you can actually not film yourself.
Try it out.
Try it out.
Yeah.
And when you were talking about what it takes to film, I was doing the same thing. I'm like, wait, is this the left? Is this the right?
Yeah.
I was so confused. I'm like, what am I looking at? So I understand completely.
Yes.
I can only imagine what you were going through filming these movies.
we knew this going in, too. Like,
Yeah.
we were all big Muppet fans and also behind-the-scenes stuff. So we kind of knew, and I knew enough about film and puppetry at that point. But even, like, making Josh and Todd, there were the puppet itself was 6-7 pounds. It was a huge puppet. The monster is this huge puppet. Todd is the monster. And I'd be like tucked inside a couch holding this thing up over my head. And sometimes I wouldn't even have a monitor just because there was nowhere to put one. Or another time we'd made this bed frame out of a camping bed frame with an air mattress. So the puppet could be like in the bed but not have to be in the bed. And it was this whole fiasco. But it worked out. You can't tell. The movie looks great. But
How do you make the puppets or Muppets walk? Because I've seen a couple of your skits, and they're walking through the woods. How do you get that?
Well, we'll put the puppets way over our heads and put the camera up high, and then just walk it like we're walking. But you make the puppet bounce up and down a little bit because they're a little smaller than we are, so their steps should be a little different, But you try to keep it as realistic as possible for things like Head. We wanted to play it completely straight, so they don't do the Muppet prance as they're going through. They're just kind of walking through. That's a good scene though, where they kind of all pass that camera. When I watched, I laughed because I know what we had to go through to film it right, But like it worked.
Now, do you film all in Connecticut?
So far, yeah. We try to keep everything local. Even our soundtracks, we try to get like local bands and things like that. So far that's almost everything we've ever done is local. Head took place in Vermont. We had a place we wanted to shoot it up there, but we decided to go with Connecticut just to, keep budgetary reasons too, or less hotels and things like that if we're filming in our own backyard.
Now, I listen to a lot of independent filmmakers, and they always tell me the same thing. they said that a lot of times they don't have a permit to film in an
Yeah.
area. So what they'll do is they'll film until the cops come and then run.
Yes,
get as
we
many
did
scenes as they can.
We were shooting Animal Behavior a couple summers ago, and there we had a scene that we wanted to do on the train tracks, and we went to these train tracks in Plainville, and we were there. I'm laying in the train tracks with a puppet over my head, and we see a cop car drive by, and we're like, now, did she see us? Did he see us? She wouldn't know if it was guy or girl yet. Did they see it? And then the U-turn and pulled up, and I'm like, oh, crap. And then she got there, and it was a woman got out, and she radios in, and she comes over, and she's like, what are you guys doing? We're like, oh, we're making a movie with puppets. And she just starts laughing. And then I tell her how, like, we've shot a ton of stuff in Plainville. The police department was aware of us and things like that. And she was just like, oh, yeah, just making sure you're not like teenagers doing drugs over here. It's cool.
She's I can only imagine that phone call
Yeah.
to the dispatch, like, excuse me, we have some puppets roaming the
Right.
streets. Can we send backup, please?
Well, another officer pulled up, and he had like his hand on his gun. He was getting ready to arrest us, and she's like, "Calm down. They're
Really?
grown men with puppets. It's okay." She pretty much told him to get lost. She was like, "You need to leave because you're too excited." And she told him to take off, which
That's
is really
hilarious.
cool of her.
Was he
Yeah.
younger or older? I'm just curious.
I feel like he was older than her.
Really?
She seemed really young, but she was just so nice and so funny. She stuck around to watch for a couple minutes, and then she
I would
took
love
off.
it. I would ask to be part of the movie.
Oh, right, yeah. Plainville's been pretty good to us. Like,
That's good.
when we shot Josh and Todd, all like the exterior downtown scenes were all shot in downtown Plainville. The police knew we were there. We didn't pull permits, and they didn't give us a hard time at all. There's a scene in the jail cell in town.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
That's
so
good.
They were really cool about us shooting there. They were like, "Yeah, come on in,"
There's a movie named Swingers that had Vince Vaughn
Yep.
and Jon Favreau. And there's one scene where they're pulling off, and you could hear the reason they're pulling off. They said was because you can hear a siren, and the cops were coming, so they
just got
didn't have
out
the
of there.
permit. They just got out of there before the
Yeah.
cops can catch them.
There have been a couple of times where we were in other places we weren't as familiar with and things like that, where we've been like, we got to get in and out of here fast. Plantsville, Southington, we've even in Bristol, we were like, let's get in and out of here quick, So,
Tell me about Puppet for a Day.
Puppet a Day.
Puppet a
That's
Day.
yeah,
It's
that's
a blog.
The John blog. I started it in 2008, I think. My wife had shown me this article about a painter who was doing this thing called a painting a day, and to keep himself active, he would make a painting every single day and post it on a blog. I thought that was a really cool idea, so I decided I'm going to do a puppet a day, and I had 80, 90 puppets at that point, so I was going to post all of those while building more. So it gave me some time, and my goal was to do a whole day of puppets, a whole year of puppets, and I made it the year. There was 1 week I went on vacation, and that's when I posted the puppets I'd either made with other people or like Steve the Vampire's mom was made by somebody else, but I showed her how to make puppets, so she made that one. So like my vacation week was the 5 days of other people making puppets. But then after that, I just kept the blog going to kind of promote Elmwood Productions and the stuff that I do. And it's been a lot of fun. I still post puppets whenever I finish one up or can, because sometimes you just can't because you don't want to give a character away till after the show is done and things like that. But
Yeah.
they're popping up, which is fun. Every Saturday I try to post a puppet.
Well, there's a writer
Yeah.
that I know that he would do the same thing. He would write a short story every day. He did it for a year. That
Yeah.
was his blog. So he'd write one story a day.
And it's not
That's-
always easy.
No,
Yeah.
not at all. I think that's when it's probably toughest because you're almost forced to do it instead of having it come
Right.
naturally. It's like, no, I have to write something today no matter what. That's I know I would have the
Yeah.
freeze.
Yeah, and luckily when I started the blog, I already had like 3 months worth of puppets, and then we had these bigger projects coming up that we were shooting. We were doing a series called Gamers. We were doing Animal Behavior. There's a couple of things.
Well, I have to say,
I was lucky to like have these projects on deck that I had to build for anyways. So it made it easy. Yeah.
I have to say, you mentioned animal behavior.
Yeah.
I loved that. I was watching
Thank
it.
you.
I could not stop laughing.
That's one of my favorite projects we've ever done, actually. Yeah.
Let me explain to my listeners. I think the puppet is you.
Yes,
the
it's
main
based
guy.
on my
You can
life.
tell it's based on you. And there's 2 cats. One cat has a crush on your girlfriend.
Right.
And he's trying to kill you.
To get with her. To live
Get with her. To live with her. Yeah. And you know what's going on. You're like, I think this cat wants to kill me. Oh, come on, you're crazy.
All my friends
Did you
think
see
I'm
that?
crazy,
Did you
yeah.
see that? And he tries so hard to kill you. And I watched 2 or 3 of these. I
Nice.
cannot stop laughing. I loved
Right.
it.
Yeah, they're all online on our streaming site to like rent and buy, and we're adding them to YouTube one each month this year. We're putting all the episodes up for free. So I think the 3rd episode hits YouTube by the time this airs, who knows? But this coming Wednesday. Yeah, so every month there'll be an episode up. That and Risley Brothers are putting out there for free this year. So.
You have, I saw Animal Behavior, Risley Brothers, Steve the Vampire, which I loved.
Thanks.
And this is my favorite, or one of my favorites, because I grew up watching Joe Bob Briggs, Elvira. So Graveyard Gill presents Jungle Man.
Yes.
Graveyard Gill is great.
That was I love that character. He was created out of necessity, but he's one of my favorite characters. I play him, and I love playing Graveyard Gill.
Yeah.
I just love the character. I can't wait to do more with him. You know, he's the if you've seen Head, he hosts Head as well.
Yes.
So like our whole thing is now whenever we're doing with a horror film that's not completely straight, like a little goofy, we're gonna have Graveyard Gill be the host of it. And that's gonna be like short films, feature films, whatever we can do, and kind of brand him out in a way. 'Cause he's just so cool.
I am speaking with writer, director, filmmaker, puppeteer, and owner of Elmwood Productions, John Bristol. I want to talk about the movie Head.
Yes.
It's a horror movie with puppets. And what I love about it is because you mentioned it several times, you play this movie straight.
Yeah.
It's not a comedy. It's a horror movie. And you and I are about the same age. And I know you grew up watching the same movies I did because you were paying homage to all the movies I love.
Yes.
Like the original Evil Dead.
Yep.
The first one, which was taken very seriously. Part 2 was great, but it was more on the comic
Had
side.
that comedic slapstick
Yeah.
side, yeah.
Yeah. So, and there, I love all the 80s, 70s, 80s horror movies, the Grindhouse movies.
Yes, that's
And
exactly what we were doing, yep.
Exactly. I could tell. And I love the fact that this movie pays homage to it. You take it seriously, and it shows. It's a great movie. I recommend it to everybody.
Thanks.
And I think it won several awards. Is that correct?
Yeah, we won I think 6 awards.
Wow.
I'm the wrong person to ask what they were though. Ricky would be the right guy for that. He loves that stuff. I'm like just happy to have one. Like we we have 2 hanging up in the studio, which is kind of fun. But yeah, I think worldwide we did 6. But making Head was just like so much fun. I wrote it as like an exercise in writing a horror movie because I always wanted to do one. Never thought we'd make one. We had one in mind that fell apart, and that's why I wrote it to get it off my chest. And then we sat on it for a couple of years. Then we were like, oh, we'll do it with actors. We've never done it with just actors, and it just kept falling apart. And then Russ, who shoots a lot of our stuff, he was producing the film with Ricky and I. He was we were getting ready to shoot it. We were trying to find actors and actresses in 2014, and nothing was working out. And Russ, one day at the beginning of a meeting with Colonel Scott, they looked at Ricky and I, and he was just like, you know what, if we can't find a cast, why don't we just do it the way we do everything else? And it was like, yeah, why don't we? So we gave it one more day of casting. We found one great person. We found 2 good people during the casting to puppeteer. But they became be actresses, and they ended up puppeteering. But we found one more girl who wanted to be a puppeteer as well. We warned her. We're like, by the way, I know you're auditioning for a human movie, but we might do it with puppets. And she's like, I'll do puppets. Like,
I
so
love
like,
that.
all right, well, let's have you audition then. And the next morning, the decision was made to do puppets. And now we had the location already set. So we had like, I think 6 weeks before we started filming, and I had to build all the puppets in 6 weeks. We only recycled one old puppet. So it was like myself and Mike Finland, who's the lead puppeteer. He played Bruce. Him and I cranked through. Like, he helped me out a lot, cutting the patterns and everything and gluing foam together. And so it was cool. We got it, but we did it. We pulled it off. Yeah.
Well, a lot of that movie is in the woods, obviously.
Yep.
Like every horror movie in the 80s, 4 teenagers go up in the woods. What can possibly go wrong? Everything goes wrong. Where was that filmed? Was that in Plainville as well?
We filmed that in Bethlehem, Connecticut.
Okay.
Bethlehem, Connecticut. Yeah, Russ's dad owned a bunch of property, and he was like, "Yeah, use it, have fun with it," which is great. And there's that, and we've seen the films. There's that tree.
Yes.
Well, we went to this tree, and we're like, "Great, let's do this." I don't want to give anything away, but let's do this. Let's make this look gory and gross. And then we did it, and we were going to just leave everything on it till we were done shooting. We'd come back to it the next day and things like that. And then we found out we'd actually gone off his property onto the next person's property.
Oh.
And that person thought it was hilarious. So we were like,
good.
He's like, yeah, don't worry about it. But it was like, sorry. Like, literally, of course, the 100 feet off the property. But the guy was like, I don't care. I can't see from my house. I don't care.
I like that. Well, you know what? Without even realizing it, until very recently, I co-host a public access show with one of your creations. I didn't realize that there was a connection between me and one of your puppets.
Yeah.
I co-host a public access show in New Haven. It's called Nerd Talk with Kurt Boucher, Lana Peck,
Yep.
and
that-
Michael Ilian.
And that random orange puppet. Yeah.
Does the name George ring a bell?
Yeah, that's what they call him. I can't remember.
Yeah, George's
I've seen
name-
the show a couple times. Yeah.
Yeah, so he's one of the co-hosts. He's in the back making jokes about everything.
Yeah.
It's hilarious. And I found out when I was doing the interview with you, Kurt's like, oh, where do you think George came from?
That's awesome. Yeah, I remember when I met Kurt through a couple of different events when Desultory Theater Club was up here in Torrington, and I had that puppet on the Etsy page because I'll sell old puppets off and things like that. And he bought it, and then he was like, "Can I use this for my show?" And I'm like, "It's yours. Do what you want with it. Just give me a credit. Just let people know Elmwood made it. And Lana plays him." Right?
Yes,
Yeah,
Lana
she's
Peck.
doing a great job. I did a show with her
hilarious.
once. She's great. Yeah.
Yeah, we have a green screen, and George is just doing all the craziest things, and he comes out with the craziest comments, and
Yeah.
I love it. So, Dad, that's
This is how
what year was that made?
the puppet?
Yes.
2009 maybe 2008, and it was just like I had extra scraps and wanted to build something, and it was probably during that time I was doing the blog, actually, like doing the whole first year. And so just, all right, I have this thing, I'm gonna make it, I have this fabric, let's get this puppet done. And then it ended up on Etsy a few years later, and that's how they ended up with it, which is great. Yeah.
Well, tell me about the Elmwoods Puppet Workshop.
Oh yeah, we have a small studio space where we build all the puppets. It's private, so people are always like, "Hey, can I come look?" No, unless I know you, I don't really bring people in there. Because it's just people get touchy. They want to touch everything, and if you don't know everybody, it's like. And sometimes I'm building puppets for other people's projects, and I also have photos and things like that. But it's where we build all the puppets. It's where we meet. The gang meets up there, and we go through our scripts and whatever projects we're working on, and it's a great spot. I love it. We there's puppets everywhere. We have a attic above us, and it's just 15 storage bins full of 100+ puppets from over the years, but it's a fun little place. Yeah.
Do you teach people how to be a puppeteer?
I do teach. Yeah, I've done classes and workshops. Looking to maybe do a workshop sometime this year in 2020 for building. So if they're interested, just drop me that email and I'll put you on the list.
I think I'm going to be added to that list.
There you go.
I would love to
Awesome.
do that.
It's it's a lot of fun to build them for sure. 'Cause it's like playing God. You're making a life essentially. Then you get to create the personality for it and all that, which is a lot of fun. I would say one of the cool things about making puppets is you can make it be whatever you want.
Yeah.
You can't, especially with independent film. I got a buddy who's always complaining because I can't find an actress that looks like this. I'm like, do it with puppets. You can make it look like that. Oh, I'm like, then he saw Head and he's like, I see what you mean now. Because we had that character Bruce who looks like Bruce Campbell. We wanted Bruce Campbell in our movie. We put Bruce Campbell in our movie, and we called the character Bruce,
And there's nothing they could do about it.
No, because we don't. I'm saying it out loud now, but we don't make it look exactly like Bruce Campbell. But if you catch the joke, he's wearing the blue shirt at one point, even. It's there.
Well, I was told that as long as you change something by one letter,
oh yeah,
they can't do anything.
Right. There's so many little ins and outs. We did the Horror Con in Connecticut, CT Horror Fest, I think is what it's called.
Yeah.
We had a booth at it back in 2016 for Head to promote the film and sell DVDs. And the Ladies of Evil Dead were there. And Mike came with me, the puppeteer who played Bruce, and he took the puppet over to their booth, and they lost their minds. They knew who it was right away. Apparently one of them texted Bruce Campbell a picture of them with the puppet. And then a couple years later, Ash vs. Evil Dead has an Ash puppet. I'm like, hey, that might have been our idea, but I can't really say anything, though.
Coincidence?
I wonder.
I think not.
Yeah, I wonder.
Very interesting.
Yeah. But that's okay,
Well, have you had more success with the family-oriented films or the adult-oriented films?
Definitely the PG-13 and R-rated stuff.
Wow, that's interesting.
When you're doing the family-oriented stuff, you're competing with the best of the best. You're competing with Sesame Street. You're competing with the Muppets. You're competing with Fraggle Rock. You're competing with the whole Henson world, the Disney Henson worlds, and they're the best of the best for what they do. Muppets aren't necessarily kid stuff. They're family-friendly, though. Animal Behavior is one of my favorite projects, and that's definitely a family-friendly thing. But when it comes down to it, people get more excited to run out on a Friday night to go see something like Head. I'm going to go out or rent that and sit on their couch with their friends and watch this obnoxious, crazy horror movie. I think that's just, kids' attention spans are different than they were too. And I think adults are more interested in puppetry as an art right now than they were even 10 years ago. So I think that's helpful too, to have this adult stuff like Risley Brothers too. Very PG-13, a little risque. That's one of my favorite things about Head is I wrote it to be a 1980 horror movie. There's a cell phone reference and things like that. 'Cause it's now, but I was thinking about the first two Friday the 13th. So I was thinking about My Bloody Valentine.
Love that. Happy Birthday to Me. All of those movies.
Yeah, April Fool's Day.
Yes.
All these movies that were that 77 to 85 tops window. And that's kind of where I was going with it. I think I watched. I want to say it was My Bloody Valentine the night before I started writing it too, and I was just like, yeah, that's kind of the aesthetic I want, Well,
you achieved it.
Thank you.
Well, we're almost out of time, so
right.
What's next and where can people find you?
All right, what's next is we're about to start shooting, we started last week, a film called Bernice 2. It's a sketch comedy film, kind of like Kentucky Fried Movie, but PG-13. We're going a little more family-friendly. Yeah. Not completely family-friendly. Our last two movies were R, so this feature film is going to be a little cleaner. A little more positive, fun, goofy stuff. It's about two guys in a wheelchair. One guy in a wheelchair, one guy pushing it, and their adventures of the day. And it's going to be really fun. We did a Kickstarter for it. It was successful. So that should be out by the fall is the goal. Labor Day is the goal, knock on wood. And where you can find us is ElmwoodProductions.com, our regular website. We're on Facebook, Instagram. We have a blog, Elmwood Productions, blogspot.com or .blogspot. It's all linked on the website, but everything's there. I think we have a Twitter that we almost never use, but it exists. So you can always find us online, though. The .com is easy. There's a contact form right there, too, if you want to reach out to us. I check it all the time. A few of us are always available. So, yeah.
John, it was great having you on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me on. Yeah.
Definitely looking forward to what's coming up next.
Thank you. Yeah, me too. And also, unofficially, I can say this, there's going to be a Head sequel. So,
right.
Unofficially.
We have a Nutmeg Chatter Presents the Claw's Corner exclusive right here.
That's it, yeah.
A Head sequel. That wraps up another edition of Nutmeg Chatter Presents the Claw's Corner. I would like to thank my guest, writer, director, filmmaker, puppeteer, and owner of Elmwood Productions, John Bristol. I would also like to thank you, the listener, for tuning in every week. Enjoy your day, everyone.
Wow, this place is sweet. Too bad for you guys, there's only 2 chicks.
She takes that camera everywhere with her.
Guys! Somebody's stalking around out there.
I'm sorry.
3 years ago, 3 women disappeared camping. No case was even opened by the police.
Cheesy!
I'd do anything to sleep in the comfort of an air mattress.
I'd watch your back, sweetie. I'd watch it real good.
I need some air. In the middle of the damn woods! Semantics! I really expected you to scream. Oh my.
At least you kept your head on straight.
Oh God, no!
Joe has no head.